87% of realtors that get into the business get out of the business after 2 years. That does not exist in our world.
We have massive visions around growing our businesses, and we are always looking to add talent to our world. We do everything in our power to ensure the people we surround ourselves with defy the odds, get into production, and build massive lives for themselves.
We have interviewed some of the top realtors in the world. If you're a new realtor, a top producer, or CEO of a mega team, Sales Beast Podcast is your blueprint for success.
With locations all across Canada, reach out to us to talk about partnership and opportunities. We are looking forward to it.
Yes, I'm the boss.
Welcome back to Sales Beast, and today we have an amazing guest joining us today. We have the Bill Soteroff, operating principal of Keller Williams Canada. He's also the president of Keller Williams Worldwide. We are honored to bring you on the podcast today. Welcome, Bill.
Thanks, Anna. Thank you so much, Mike. It is my honor to be with you. I've waited all these years, as I've mentioned to other people and yourself, for you to get down to me after 80 podcasts and talking to hundreds of thousands of people. For me to be on your call today is highlight of my month. So thank you.
Well, the 80 plus people were all practice leading up to you, I promise.
I truly believe that. It's rare now that we've had 80 people on the podcast. It's rare that I get nervous. And we've had some very impressive people, and I'm a little nervous to talk to you today, Bill.
Makes me smile. Thank you.
You've accomplished a lot.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
My first experience with you was a few months ago when we were in Toronto. You hosted an amazing event with 800 of the best and brightest realtors from Keller Williams Canada. And you were the front runner. You were the guy on stage. It was an amazing experience for all of us. And I appreciate so much.
I appreciate you saying that. Let me just throw in a correction, and because we're proud of the number, is I think you're talking about the function we had in February, Mississauga, and we had 1,200 people there. We had more than 200 guests, and we had some speakers, including the president of Keller Williams Realty International for Canada and the United States, Mark King. But in as you know, in February in Canada, to host an event with, as I said, 1,200 people was nerve-wracking. Canada lives from 24th of May to Labor Day, and then you grit your teeth and walk through slush and sludge and shovel snow for the rest of the year. And of course, what do? We plan an event in February. So we were thankfully blessed with pretty good weather. It was cold, but not a snowstorm. And we were really happy because we can lay claim to the fact that that was the largest gathering of real estate professionals ever for Keller Williams, but it was the largest gathering of real estate professionals in Canada for 3 years because of COVID. And so when everybody came out, stayed all day, came early in the morning, we were delighted. And there were some extremely enthusiastic people who showed up for the event. We learned a lot. The exchange of information and know-how was remarkable. We're planning to do more events like that and on an annual basis, and be in a situation to bring people together. Only good things can happen when you put a whole bunch of KW people in a room together. We could solve a lot of world problems. I learned that on that day. I'm amazed at our people. So thank you for mentioning it. It was a highlight of our year. We have, during the course of 2023, we're going to have more than 26 in-person meetings from Vancouver to the Maritimes to Ontario to the West, the Prairies, and Vancouver, and be in a situation where we can duplicate this on smaller scales, get an information exchange, do some training and education, talk about our systems and models, and most importantly, talk about our culture. So to be able to do that has been one of the great honors of my life, to see how we can impact so many different people. The second thing to say is, did you see the people who were in that room? We had demographics, just to let you know, 60% of the people, I think the number is exactly 67% of the people were women, all 20, 30, 40-year-old people. I definitely, no matter where I go, usually I'm the oldest guy. And I didn't used to be. I always remember being the youngest guy in the room. Now all of a sudden I turned out to be the oldest guy. But to be in a room with people in our industry, in our company, who are young, who are looking to the future, who are changing their lives and careers, and in many cases, changing the destiny of their families, that's really something that we're very proud of. Companies everywhere have a culture. Companies everywhere have meetings. A get together of KW people, family is a family reunion. And because of COVID, we had together like that for 3 years, and everybody was friendly and family. And I had more hugs and kisses and high fives and social distancing elbow bumps than I could ever imagine. And I was just grateful and thank you to every single person who was there. And then I'm looking forward to the next events as we come forward. We have a pretty good event, pretty good sized event coming up in September in Halifax. And I think that we're planning to have something like 700 or 800 people in the Maritimes, and that's never happened. So as I said, when you get KW people together, magical things happen.
Especially when you do it in Halifax. It's my hometown. I have a feeling they're going to take excellent care of you out there. Oh, they're fun people.
Yeah, we alerted the police that we're coming in, and the town will never be the same. There'll be a lot of
dangerous.
So that's all right. I didn't know you were a Maritimer, so I would have started off with a blue noser and made you feel at home. So you know what I'm talking about, the weather in February, right? So you knew how nervous we were and concerned. So
yeah,
thanks for mentioning that. Yeah.
So you said one thing there, change the destiny of people's families. There's one thing about that event that I think changed the destiny of my family and changed the destiny of a lot of people's families that I work with in this office. So we, as everyone knows, we went through this real estate shift. There are less transactions to be had. There's less commission dollar available. Me and Anna talk about this a lot. In my office, I call it the law of familiarity. Mike eventually is white noise. I can tell them what's happening or what's going on or what I think might be around the corner. But they hear from me so much, sometimes they choose not to listen. And then Bill Soteroff and Mark King fly into Canada and verbatim say the same thing that I've been saying. That was so helpful. And within our organization, I think that was the moment people really figured out that something's up here. We need to put our work boots on, get to it. And our production has gone up significantly since that event. So thank you.
Absolutely. And we've just gone through the transmittal and close of June last week or so. And given the fact that there's a shift, which is a word that Keller Williams owns because of the great Gary Keller and the books that he's written, on cue, Anna's reaching, and I hope you're reaching for shift. There we go. So Gary taught us that we're always in shift, whether the marketplace is going up and down, and how to work within that marketplace. What I was going to say was, given the fact that there is in this shift, and we were very lucky in 2008 to avoid the problems that our American neighbors went through. We did not have that crash that they had gone through. So we had gone basically 17 years in Canada without an economic market shift. It was bound to come at one point in time. I smile because I have children who are in their 30s, and they were buying their first homes, and they had never experienced any interest rates at 2% or 1.5%. There's a fabulous book that has just come forward about buying your first home, again, written by Gary Keller. I'm very honored that my wife and I are in that book. We bought our first home just after we got married in the early 1980s. And we purchased that home in Burlington, Ontario, saving our money, with my wife sewing and doing the curtains and putting up wallpaper and waiting for another little baby to come along. Well, that home we bought, I think it was about 18% interest rates. And so when we take a look at the shift that we're in now, and we're all gritting our teeth and nervous about 5, 6, or maybe 7% interest rates, I smile because in my life, that's cheap still. What we don't realize is the average interest rate in Canada since 1945 is 6.2%. And so we talk about a shift that goes up and down. We don't ever want to see 18% ever again. I'm not too sure if we're going to see 1 or 2% again, but I think you can be pretty comfortable budgeting and looking at your life, given the fact that we live in a great country with great opportunities at 4, 5, or 6%. And even if it does go a little bit higher, I think we can learn to live with it. Does it bring concern and problems and stress to families? Absolutely. There's no question about it. But by the same token, we have to live in a worldwide environment. We should be thankful that we don't live in places like Argentina or Turkey that are dealing with 20, 30, or 45% interest rates or 1,000% inflation. We run businesses in those locations, and my conversations to those OPs and business leaders, agents, and market center leaders is substantially different. They're buying products that escalate in price by 1,000% a month, and so we live in this worldwide economy and environment. Make no mistake about what we're living in right now. By the way, when we talk about a shift, our shift is the post COVID era. Our shift is economic and political difficulties that are occurring around the world. Our friends in the United States to the south of us are going through extreme political difficulties with presidential elections, riots at the Capitol, difficulties like that, which are an anomaly and hopefully an anomaly in the world. So we live in this little country called Canada that is uniquely situated in the world with a stable economy, a high education level. We welcome immigrants into the country, and we take a look at what we can do for the future and make lives for each person here. They're living in this environment where there's political, economic, social problems. We have the post-COVID era. We're worried about inflation. We're doing, and make no bones about it, we're on the verge of a war where, thankfully, right now, Canada is supplying material. The United States is spending a huge amount of money on supporting the war in Ukraine, defending the rest of Europe and us from this Russian incursion. And we're sitting here saying that, we want to grow our business and do things. It's an extremely difficult time. There's nothing that's settled. One of the things that I'm really proud of is that each of us want to take care of our families, work in our businesses, and develop and grow businesses in this difficult economic time. And I'm amazed at the resilience, and a part of my job is to work around the world. And I'm a first generation Canadian. You got the opportunity of moving to the country. Mike, I'm pretty sure that your family from the East Coast takes a look at the opportunities and being able to move and go some different places. Canada is the one country in the world which gives everyone an opportunity to do things. And, I think I use this phrase, no matter where I go in the world can use more Canada. From the system of our banking, to our economic system, to our parliamentary democracy, to the opportunity for education for everyone, healthcare. These are really important basic things that people should have. And then the second part is to be able to own and operate your own business as an agent, as an independent contractor, or to be able to own market centers or have teams and listed sell property. This is really unique in the world. And this is the concept, quite frankly, that I'm taking around the world now for Keller Williams to 57 countries and more than 20,000 agents. I just want to tell a really quick story about when we opened Keller Williams in Mexico. I usually go through a talk and I say thank you to all of our OPs who have made the decision to invest in a region or market centers and to develop their business. I thank our team leaders, and then I thank our agents. And then I do this little thing and I say, is there one group that I've forgotten? And this is unique to Keller Williams because most real estate organizations don't have this structure of an OP, operating principal, a team leader, or an MCA. MCA, of course, is the person that runs and operates the market center on a day-to-day business and does lots of the work for agents. It's a unique position. I was in Mexico and I was thanking everyone, and I said, is there one group that I've forgotten? Is there one group I've forgotten? And I have all the agents yelling and shouting out, you know, MCAs, MCAs. And I said, could I ask all the MCAs to stand up? And we had about 24 market centers. Some market centers had one or two, or an MCA and an assistant. So there was a little bit more than 30 people who stood up. As I'm standing on the stage and I see this, I looked and I saw almost everybody standing up was a young woman. So I looked at that and I thought, why is that? Is that because we're subjugating somebody? Is that because we're placing that position with a preconceived notion that that should be a female or a woman's job? So I had a separate meeting with all of them, and I said, why is this? Why are there so many women in this position? And of course, it's in Spanish, so there's a translation. And this one lady, however, stood up, 27 years old. And she said to me, don't ever say that. This is my job. This is my job. I'm the first person in my family to have gone to university that was sponsored by the Market Center. I'm the first person in my family to support my entire family. And this is my job. Was it a dry eye of the place? You know, I can honestly tell you that we're creating unique opportunities for people in different places. If she wasn't the MCA in that market center, her best opportunity might be to work in a restaurant, which is a great job. Her best opportunity might be to be a server in a hotel for people vacationing, which is a good job. Or her best opportunity would be to not have anything. As a 27-year-old woman in her area, employment was difficult, 60% unemployment. And she came to me and said, don't ever stop doing this. Don't ever stop questioning. We're proud of the organization that we have. She said to me, do you know I run $1 million business? Do you know I take care of 70 agents? Do you know what I do? I do know what you do. And then I changed my attitude on that said, we provide opportunities for people who are of every gender, every race, every religion, without questioning any of those things. And we give people opportunities who in many cases would never have had that opportunity. It was, as you said earlier, Mike, a meeting that changed my life. You know, so when I go to different places and I see our team leaders or our MCAs or our OP stand up, I'm proud of each one of them, because that's our unique culture to have created those positions and have people who are able to have really gainful employment and be doing things for other people within this family. The other thing I was going to say was, when we talk about different positions in different areas, and we go through this shift, and we know that there's a reduction right now in the volume of transactions, the price of those transactions, it's really interesting to see. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, we just did the closing for our company at the end of June. It was the best month ever that we had in the history of the company. From agent gain, 4 new market centers this year, and then the opportunity for people to involve themselves in listing and selling whatever properties are available. We are bucking the trend of every single real estate company out there. So I know what we're doing is correct. And I know the most important thing to do is put together the teams in those market centers to give support and training and education to our agents, and to be in a situation where we allow people to rise to the level of competency and beyond based on what we can provide for them. So I'm proud of a lot of the things that we've done, but it's that old phrase, right? Wait, we've only just begun. We've only just started scratching the surface to be able to permeate and be able to come and bring our level of service, commitment, and systems and models forward in every community across Canada. And for me, and my other part-time job is being president of Keller Williams Worldwide, around the world. And as I said, that number 67% female, is one that holds true. If we go to different countries around the world, somewhere between 58 and 67% of all our agents are women. All of our OPs and team leaders kind of fall into that category. So I'm really proud of what we're doing, because in many traditional countries, there are roles, and we're changing some of those roles and activities. So everywhere we go, everything that we're touching, we're talking about our culture, our systems, models, training, education, and technology, and we're showing people that things can be done. One of the things that I like to do is I go forward like this. I say, this little company that started in Austin, Texas, goes forward, and we get to do things. And that going forward means that each individual person gets a basis of information and knowledge and support, and then gets to go and do what they want to do. I love the fact that I can go to so many communities across Canada, and I see agents who own their own business, who are in business for themselves, being part of a team or in a market center, get training and education, but get the benefit of what they do for their families. That changes the dynamics of things. You know, how many times have we talked to people? My wife is from Burlington, Ontario, and I grew up in that area, and I used to drive by the Ford plant on the QEW every day. And in the time that I lived there for 20 years, there were 7 layoffs of the Ford workers. My wife's next door neighbor, who unfortunately just passed away last week, we went to his funeral. He was laid off 7 times in 15 years, because the company decided that the plant in Nashville, Tennessee was more important, and they shut down the plant in Canada. That's the environment I grew up in, and I made a decision to not let people make a decision about my career and my family. So being a real estate agent, opening and operating a market center, or being a team leader or an MCA is substantially different, because you don't have to depend on somebody else telling you to go home, that you're being laid off for 6 or 8 weeks, or that the product you're making is going to be made in a different plant in China or the United States or someplace else. We're a service business creating opportunities in Canada for Canadians. And then as I go around the world, I say the same thing. We just opened the first 2 market centers in Germany, and we have more than 100 agents in 10 days in Germany as we come forward with the market centers. 2 market centers that open with more than 40 or 50 agents in the market center. The average number of agents in a real estate office in Germany is 2.2. And we opened 2 market centers just in the first month to start off with more than 40 or 50 agents in those market centers. Oh, but it can't be done. You're only allowed to have 2. No. If there's a rule, we'll break it, and we'll change the way things are done. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. There's no reason for me to still be doing this. Anna, the opportunity that you have, and Mike, the opportunity that you have, comes because this company gives people opportunities. And as I said, just before we started this, you've spoken to so many different people, from different areas. I think 80 podcasts before this. No 2 people are the same. They all have their own individual story, which makes us great, because we're not just in a mold of a little category on the side. We're all these different people who can do different things, trying to achieve a goal of listing and selling property and making lives for people better. We don't make cars. We don't make shoes. We don't build buildings. We don't make steel. We are in the people business. So dealing with people is extremely important. People are good people. People are nice. People cause you stress. If any of you or anybody ever going to listen to this have children, you know that every single day is more joy you can ever imagine and more stress than you can ever anticipate. My son just had his 2nd child. He has a daughter that's 2.5 and a son that's 3 months old. And I talked to him. He's a lawyer, and he works for a company. And I talk to him every day, and I say, how are things going? He says, I have no sleep. These kids are driving me crazy. And I say to them, best day of your whole life, right? Yes. The other joke that I have with him is that he's got about another 37 or 38 years of stressful thinking. The last thing that you think about when you go to sleep is your children. And the first thing you think about when you wake up, your children. I said, that won't go away, pal. You're going to think about that for a long time. My daughter's 37, and She's a brilliant businesswoman and works for a company that is excellent, and she's doing very well. Who do I think about when I wake up in the morning? When I send her a message or a text in the middle of the day and say, I love you, I hope you're okay. She'll say, Dad, I'm really busy right now. I'm in a meeting. I can't talk to you. Then I know she's okay. And that's, by the way, exactly the attitude that we want to instill in our agents to take care of their customers and clients, not as children, but as part of your family. If you care about somebody, you're going to check on them. We're developing technology now with Command and Command MC to make sure that we can take care of our customers and clients and make sure that they're all right, that they don't need somebody to help them. Let me paint a really quick picture for you for a second. When is the time when somebody buys or sells a property? When things are good or things are bad? When their life is changing. We used to say before this economic shift came along, that decision was mostly made when a family comes together or partners come together, and the wife comes home or the mom comes home and says, I'm going to have a baby. Well, we can't live in this little apartment any longer. We can't live in our parents' basement any longer. We might need a place on our own. So all of a sudden, that shift for a family comes along because you need to buy a house or an apartment or a condo or someplace that the first reaction is, we can't afford this. The average number of transactions in a family's or a community's life is 7. From university or college to high school to living with your parents to your first or your second place, and you go forward. The second part of the problem comes in an economic shift when, God forbid, somebody loses their job, or there's an employment change and you have to sell, or which is happening during COVID, if there's a sickness, an illness, or a death in the family, and you can no longer afford to live where you are. Who becomes the most important person on the planet then to help you buy the most important thing you're ever going to buy and invest in? That's your home. And who's going to be there for you when you need to sell that home? That's going to be the real estate agent. And the real estate agent should understand who the family is, or who the partners are, or who those people are as they get together and help out. My wife's mother passed away in the last few months at 93. At 93, her husband had already passed away, and she had a house that they bought in the 1950s, and she needed help at the end of her life to sell that house. Who becomes the most important person? The real estate agent that helped organize a correct sale so that the end of her life was taken care of, her personal life was taken care of properly. By the same token, every purchase and sale requires that real estate agent to be professional and to be part of the economic philosophy and business decisions behind that. Because, to be truthful with you, who's the first person you call when you need help? Your parents. Well, in my life, my parents had 2 houses. One purchased in 1942 when they got married, and one they bought in 1966. The old house and the new house, they used to refer to it. So when I bought my house with my wife at 18% interest rates, I called my dad and I called my mom. I said, help me buy this house. How does this happen? My dad said, well, the last house we bought was 1966, pal. So you're kind of on your own. Who was the next most important person we went to? The realtor. The picture that I paint for people very often is that if a business, Anna, I see you're sitting in a building, so I'll use you as an example. I assume in your building, there's a number of floors and offices, and there could be 25, 50, 100, 200 people who work in that building. Out your window, I see condos, and we were talking earlier, you're in Vaughan, Ontario, and Vaughan's exploding with condos and buildings and housing. The buildings behind you probably have 1, 3, 5, 7,000 people who live in those buildings. Well, what happens if the air conditioning in the summer or the heating in the winter goes out? Well, the first thing you do is you do an assessment. You say, well, we need a new heating system. I live part of the year, by the way, in Austin, Texas, and the temperature in Austin, Texas is 37 to 41 degrees in the summertime. Do you think air conditioning is important? It isn't a discussion of, I wonder if we have the money. The discussion is, how fast can we get somebody over here to get new air conditioning? Or when it's February in Canada and minus 37 Celsius, what do you need? You need some heat. So Anna, the building you're in has no heat in the wintertime. You call up the building and they say, we need a new furnace. The first thing you do is say, how much will it cost? You call your banker. You have perhaps a VP of engineer taking a look at it. And then you call somebody who's a vendor and you take a look at a heating and air conditioning system from China, from Germany, from Japan, or from Canada. All four have different costs. You make a decision on the balance between cost and benefit, and you put an air conditioning system in. The air conditioning system in your building, if it's got 3 or 4 floors and a few hundred people, probably cost $500,000 or $1 million or $2 million. In order for that decision to be made, you have a vice president of finance who can determine whether you have the money to do that. You have a banker to lend you the money if you need it. You have a physical engineer who probably has a graduate degree in engineering. Then you have 1, 2, or 3, 4 vendors who come along. So to make the decision to put heating, which you need in your building, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people to make that decision to buy a heating system that you need. Somebody wants to go buy a property, average sales price in the Toronto marketplace is 1.2 million. Who makes that decision? Mom, can you help me? And as I said to you, in my life, my mom and dad bought their house in 1966. In your world, your mom and dad might have bought their house in the 70s or the 80s or the 90s, but they bought 1 or 2. They don't buy, and they're not professionals. So whenever anybody says to me, oh, I can do this by myself, the answer is nobody can do anything by themselves. You need that team on your side that's going to speak up for you, and that team on your side is a Keller Williams agent. And if you understand the scenario that I'm trying to paint for you, is a lot of people try to make that decision by themselves, and I think making that decision with a consummate professional who has training and education and has done this a lot, that's the best decision for it. So when I talk about what we can do for the average Canadian in helping them buy a product or sell something when they need that, then I think that we are an essential service. I think our services that we provide to Canadians is extremely essential. We're the first responders of the family, and I feel like we should continue doing that. Now, one of the things that I want is I want more offices and more agents. So if there's anybody listening to this right now that sees an opportunity for their future and is in an area where we don't have an existing market center, and Canada has the breadth and width from Bonavista to Vancouver Island, I'm looking for more wonderful, great people to open market centers, to become agents, and to work in those market centers and become Keller Williams agents and owners and independent contractors.
Bill, I wanted to ask you something. We had a bit of a conversation before we started the podcast, and this ties into a lot of the stories that you've been sharing with us today about bringing together the right individuals. Proximity is power. Having strong people around you to support you, help you grow, and building a great team is super important. So what are some of the things that you focus on leading a lot of big teams, and how do you support your people?
Traditionally, without any systems or models, the way you get into business with people, and we've seen this with Google, we've seen this with Microsoft, we've seen this with companies. You become partners because you went to school with them and you bump into them. The Beatles got together because they lived in an area in Liverpool and they happened to play together, and they kind of knew each other. They just went together. The chances of that occurring and getting a good partnership is very rare. In Canada or the United States, you walk down the street and you bump into somebody and you go, oh, sorry. Hey, you want to do some business together? You can't be in a situation where it's always going to work. The number of times you bump into somebody and by accident say, well, let's become partners, it's tough. It's difficult for that to work. In the real estate industry, mostly in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, a real estate office came together because it was a husband and wife, or a man and woman, or a father, son, or a mother, daughter, or two partners that got together, or somebody tried to do it themselves. Gary Keller, 40 years ago, took a look at this and said, there's a number of jobs that are available in a market center or a real estate office, and in as a real estate individual, agent, or a team. What you want to do is you want to choose people who have certain skills. When you go to the doctor and the doctor says, you need to have your spleen removed. By the way, I don't even know where your spleen is. I don't even know what it does. But if somebody says you got to have it removed, I'm gonna listen to them. But in today's society, you might go for 1, 2, or 3 consultations and compare, do I have the right doctor? Am I at the right hospital? What's the correct procedure? That's the correct thing to do. By the same token, when you go to a real estate agent, you want to interview that real estate agent and know, are they the right person for you? Can they do the job? How many have they bought and sold more condos? Do they fit in with my personality? Do I want all those things? By the way, do you really want to go to a doctor and have your spleen removed, and the doctor goes to you and says, hey, listen, I've done 27 spleen operations yesterday. Oh yeah, I can do yours in 7 minutes. Or do you want somebody who has that mentality that says they've gone to school for 7 years, they have apprenticed, or they worked at a hospital, or they have a practice, and they do one very carefully? Ask the doctor, when you want spleen removed, how many of your patients didn't make it? Well, the reason why I say that with a little bit of humor to you is what you really want on the other side is a real estate agent who is active and comes along and says, you know what? I've sold 127 houses this year or in my lifetime. That means that they've done it and they're professionals. What I'm trying to paint for you is a picture of different people with different roles and different responsibilities. In a real estate office, which is a small business, you want somebody who recruits agents. That's a team leader. You want an OP who sets standards and hold people together. That's the CEO. And you want an MCA who is the administrator and takes care of the agents and runs the office on a day-to-day basis. Not one person usually has those 3 different skills. I can understand a spreadsheet. I went to university. I worked at an accounting firm, but do I want to be an accountant? Not really. I understand the law. I've written contracts. I've opened real estate businesses in more than 100 countries. Am I a lawyer? What you want to do is you want to go to somebody who has expertise and puts a specialty in. So in our business, we want to create a team, as I said before, of an OP, that CEO who sets standards and holds people accountable, the team leader who recruits, and the MCA who takes care of 50 or 100 or 200 or 500 agents. They have different skills and they have different personalities. As I walk into any market center anywhere, I can pick out the MCA because of their personality. I can also pick out, by the way, that top agent who's driving the Mercedes, the Tesla, or the BMW parked in the parking slot in two spots or at an angle. That's the top agent in the office usually. Top agents, don't get mad at me. I'm just using an example. What you understand is they have an attitude. When you see the snowbirds on Canada Day fly over your community, and the pilot gets out of the plane, how do they walk down the airfield? They walk down like they own the place. That's our top agents. That's how I want all of our agents to walk. So you take on the personality of the position that you have, and you have that personality and the aptitude to be able to do certain things. So in Keller Williams, we have individual agents, we have agents who are in teams, we have market centers who have distinct responsibilities. That's all done to support the agent. And the teams that are put together are very important. Those teams that are put together, we spend a lot of time utilizing a number of different tools. RSTLM, recruit, select, train, learn, and motivate, career visioning, and understanding the personality. Do you really want to hire that MCA that has the personality of that top agent? No, you want somebody who has the aptitude and the understanding to take care of a market center of 100 people. You want to have the top agent come forward who does so many transactions and is able to organize them, they have a special individualistic quality. The role and the responsibility of the OP is to understand who should be in those different personalities. Who are the people? The other example that I can give you is sports. When we watch soccer or football, European football, when we watch soccer, how many goals does the keeper score in a season or in their lifetime? 0. You don't ever want the goalie doing a corner kick. Their job is to keep the ball out of the net. So when you take a look at the players, they have certain positions. I lived in Europe for 10 years, and Beckham, of course, was playing for Manchester United, and he at that time was the best player that he had. I don't ever think I ever saw him cross the center line and go back and play defense. That wasn't what he was paid for. What's Messi paid for? Keeping the ball out of the net or putting the ball in the net? When you take a look at football, the CFL or the NFL, you can tell a player by their body and how they've trained and what they do. I lived in Boston for 7 years, and Tom Brady was my favorite player. He does not look like a lineman. He doesn't hit like a linebacker. He can't run like a running back, but he can win 6 Super Bowls. That's the delineation of responsibility. That's why coaches, the OP, goes through a training camp and assesses the skills and the abilities of the different people, and then puts a team together. That's the job of the OP, assessing and evaluating the skills of the individual real estate agents and making sure that we can put a team together. What I'm very proud about is that we've broken the mold of having 2.2 agents in an office, or 10 or 16. The average number of agents in a market center in the United States is 263. The average number of agents in a market center in Canada is well over 170. In the world, my worldwide business, the average number of agents is 64. Remember, the average number of agents in a market center or a real estate office outside of Canada, United States, is 2.2. Our average is 64. And what we're doing is we're putting like-minded people who are professionals in a market center to take care of their friends and family in their community to help them list and sell property better than anybody else. So the team aspect of putting people together just doesn't get done by accident. It's just because you bump into somebody on the street and say, come on over here. Training, education, systems, models, and taking care of people is extremely important. We have something called GPS or 411, where we sit down with people and we talk to them about their goals and their aspirations on a weekly and a monthly basis. We evaluate them. Well, most people don't want to be evaluated or talked to like that. But if you get the understanding of the culture of Keller Williams, and you know that the team leader or the OP or the MCA is sitting down with you and helping you achieve your goals, that's substantially different. And most of us, by the way, haven't had that since high school or college or university for somebody to evaluate them on a weekly or a monthly basis. Once you get out of university or once you get out of high school, you say, hey, I'm free. Nobody's going to ever judge me again. But by the same token, you're by yourself in many cases. And what I don't like is I don't like being by myself. What I tell people is that at Keller Williams, you're always going to have somebody there with you. There's always going to be somebody there to help you or to answer your questions, give you guidance, or give you help with training or education, or do a podcast, give information and share that information. The things that you're doing, the two of you, and I've watched you since, as you said, when I first met you in February, the things that you're doing are amazing, because you're not just doing it for yourself, you're sharing your knowledge and expertise with other people. That's selflessness. That's wonderful.
I think the only reason we do that is a result of your leadership and Gary's leadership and Mark's leadership, because Keller Williams is the greatest company I've ever met when it comes to sharing information. It doesn't even matter if you're part of Keller Williams or not. Everyone's welcome. And I think when you look at this company, for Anna and myself, it's had a massive impact, not only on our professional lives, but our lives with our spouses, significant others, children. So we're just doing what you guys do for us. And that's the leadership piece. You change our lives.
Appreciate you saying that. Thank you. I know we're probably coming to the end. I don't know if you have, I just want to go down one road talking about one of the aspects of our culture and, maybe extrapolate a little bit, Mike, on what you just said. So I mentioned earlier incursion by Russia into Ukraine. And at the time that occurred, we had just finished our family reunion in Orlando, and I was on my way back to Austin, Texas. And I get this call that says that we have 65 computer programmers who do work with the company who are stuck in Ukraine, and their families are being bombed. Of the 65, 20 had lost their apartments where they were living. I had offices in Czech Republic, Poland, Albania, Slovenia, and Slovakia. And we rushed to the border and waited there. And if people could get to the border on trains, walking, or cars, we had people waiting for those first 65. And then we found out that there were Canadians that were stuck in Ukraine. And they were Ukrainian Canadians, not in Keller Williams. They were just people, Canadians. And they started to hear that we had some people coming to help. So we were getting messages saying, can you help us? There was a family of 4, a woman who had gone to Ukraine because her father was ill. He passed away, and they were busy with her father and illness, and he passed, that they didn't even know that there was this incursion. They woke up one day and Russian troops were in their town. She called her husband, who was in Canada, and said, I don't exactly know what's happening. There's no news here for me. I don't understand it. But I have, and they had 3 children, all under 10. And can you help? That person called a Keller Williams agent. The Keller Williams agent called me and said, I understand you're doing some things. Can you get this family out? So we had some people. We had 3 problems. We didn't know who they were. We didn't know where they were. And how do you get somebody out of a war zone? We identified who they were. Of course, their phones all ran out of batteries. They tried to get on a train. There was 10,000 people that were trying to get on the train. We found somebody that would drive them to the frontier, but they couldn't cross the border. And then when they didn't have any papers to cross the border and visas and all that kind of stuff. And then when we got them across the border into Poland, the police in Poland wouldn't let the family in the car because they didn't have enough car seats for the children. So our people in Poland had to run around the town and go get car seats and put them in the car. And I said, I know that safety is important, but they just came out of a war zone. Can we put them in the trunk and get them out or something like that? But, they pushed off my humor or, the pushing off the regulations. And we ended up in that first month and two with a little bit more than 5,000 people sleeping in our market centers in 5 different countries, which was a total disruption to our business. How do you feed people? How do you properly have the toilet facilities? How do you have the clothing? That's what communities all came together. Fast forward, and a few of those people came back to Canada and returned home safely. One of the people who had heard about all of this with a church group immigrated to Canada, to Newfoundland. And I got a phone call from our OP in Newfoundland. And, I said to him jokingly, if you're going to immigrate, my father immigrated to Canada and came through Halifax. And I always used to say to him, Dad, CA meant California, not Canada. Why didn't you go where it was nice and warm and have a great time? My dad said, hey, I was just trying to get away from a war. So Canada looked like a really great place to be. Mm-hmm. So I talked to this lady, and she immigrates and she ends up in Newfoundland. And I said, well, keep going. Like there's a lot of other places. She goes, I'm here. 5 or 6 months go by. She studies for her real estate exam. The market center helps her go forward. They spend it was a little bit more than a year for all of this to occur. And we just got a phone call last month that she got her real estate license. She's in the market center and she did her first transaction.
Wow.
So why do I say that? Not in a job description, not anything that we got ordered to do. We had people in 5 different countries going forward, try to help people. So that's what I'd like to think about us, is when I talk about our culture, we're going to help people with training and education. We're going to help people who are always in need, and we do that on Red Day or any other time when somebody comes forward. And then, a very special, hopefully one-off situation where we have this incursion into a country in a war zone and people step forward. I did not send one email commanding anybody to do anything.
Mhm.
What we were doing was, a person on my team was coordinating. We brought out some shirts with a world flag with a world map and a Ukrainian flag, and raised some money. And we were able to take care of tens of thousands of people without any orders being given, and had just coordinating and putting people together. We do that in a lot of countries when there's earthquakes or natural disasters or different things happening. That's the hidden secret of Keller Williams, is that if you give back to the community, because this is where we live, then good things will happen.
Well, I've heard the saying many times throughout many different leaders in the organization. KW isn't about what you get, it's about who you become.
Yeah. And I can honestly tell you, I worked 19 years in a different company. That was not the mentality. We raised funds for Children's Miracle Network. We had charity organizations and functions. At Keller Williams, it's endemic to help people in the community. Many times we don't even know who they are. But Anna, you're very right. Is that changes the way things are thought of and done. That comes from Gary Keller, from Mo Anderson, from the founders of our company, who said, we live and work in this community, give back to the community.
1,000. And I know,
Great.
Bill, you're a busy individual, so we want to respect your time today, but we have one last question for you. We typically ask all of our guests, who do you know that we should know to have on this podcast? But you know a lot of people. So how can we get Gary Keller and Mark King on this podcast?
I'll do my best. They're busy. I do get to see them. I have the great honor of, for sure, every month at what we call an SOC, a State of the Company meeting with Gary Keller, and it's an update with him. He is one of the wisest men I've ever met. He's very kind. But he's a heck of a businessman. So when I say kind, don't read in soft touch. He's the hardest working person I've ever met. Here's a man who's 40 years into it. He has a family, of course, and a business, and he starts and he fails forward and he keeps going. And I'm astounded and amazed at his capacity to keep going and doing things. And very often I work a lot. I work usually 7 days a week, and I try to take a little time off. And he says to me, "You got to take some time off." And as he says that to me, he's working. And so he astounds me. I can't promise anything. I understand what you want. He's a guy, by the way, who is a very much stay-at-home kind of guy. So even in the early days when he was opening market centers and regions across the United States, he never went. We have a market center in Southwest Austin, and in 40 years after he opened it, he never went back for 30 years. It's 1,000 meters away from us. Mm-hmm. What he's a very big fan of is to say, I know what my job is. My job is not doing your job. And now here's the second part of the problem. We have 178,000 agents in the United States, and we have 20,000 agents around the world. So if I go to him and say, hey, bud, can you do a podcast for some of my people, really great, wonderful friends? His podcasts are Mega Camp and Family Reunion, and getting to talk to people and seeing people. But I promise I'll do my best. I'm not usually persuasive when I get him to do that, but I will come up with some people that I think would be very advantageous for you. And I'll give you a list of some people that I think can assist and help you. The second part of that is this. I think the people that you have put on your podcast, as you watch them come forward, watch them go through a cycle. And once they get to year 2, 3, and 4, bring them back to show them where they were, where you were, and where they were when they talked the first time, and how their business has grown and expanded, and how they've grown as an individual. I think that's a great lesson that you can show other people. We don't stay the same. I'm not the person that graduated from A.Y. Jackson Secondary School. I'm substantially different, by the way. I'm not the same person who graduated from the University of Western Ontario. I'm not the same person who got married and had 2 children. Since I joined KW 10 years ago, I have more empathy. I have more wisdom. I have more business acumen. I've learned a lot of things. And I think the reason why I say this to you is, I think if you meet somebody in their first year and talk to them in year 3, or you meet somebody who is one position and was started and goes to a different position or joins a team, those are very valuable lessons that you can share with the people who listen to your podcast. This is a growth company, growth of market centers, agents, production, money, and also individuals.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Bill. We really appreciate you having on the podcast and getting all your wisdom today. So thanks again for your time.
I'm going to tell everybody I know for the next week that I was on your podcast and how proud I am. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Every day I'm hustling, every day I'm hustling, every day I'm hustling, every day I'm hustling.